1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome back to the Dahlem Realty Company podcast. I'm Jim Dahlem here with my brother Charlie Dahlem, and we have another special guest with us. His name is Todd Creek, and if you recognize that name, there's a reason. He's a repeat guest. He's coming back again to talk to us about artificial intelligence. He founded and is CEO of a company called Aves. And when Todd and I talked a few months ago, I asked him, well, what's changed in the artificial intelligence world since the last time we talked on our podcast? And he said everything. I said, well, I think it's about time to have you back on the podcast. Todd, thanks for coming back.
Hey, glad to be here.
Really appreciate it.
Am I the
only
first one you've had
repeat
back
guest.
for a second repeat?
Yes, you are.
All right, I feel very honored.
Yeah,
Thank you.
well, yes. Well, welcome back. For the listeners who haven't come across Aves yet, tell us what your elevator pitch is. What were you trying to solve when you started this company?
The name of the company is Aves, but it stands for AI Business Engineers. So we are your outsourced AI department. We do three things. We advise, we build, and we operate. That's simple. So most mid-sized companies can't afford to have a chief AI officer or AI and data engineers. So we serve that purpose. We'll come in, kind of help you, the advise part, find opportunities within your company to leverage AI. Then we'll design the AI for you. That's the build. But most importantly is the operate. What people must understand is the operation is everything, getting it implemented, but controlling the governance and making sure that the models are up to date and putting in all of the controls around it, because it's very different from traditional software. So that operations part is very new for people. So we provide all three. Again, outsourced AI department. That's simple.
Great. Okay, so your own background, and tell us about that, and then also the aha moment that you had when you said, I need to start this company.
Yeah, so, well, my background, I'm a process guy at heart, CPA, PricewaterhouseCoopers, but majority of my career was in energy commodities trading. And in that business, AI was always there in the legacy AI, which was traditional machine learning. That was using algorithms to make predictions, right? The new world that we're in today that we're all talking about is the generative AI, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. But so I was always around that. But then after the company I was with got sold and I was exiting that space, I was looking around at what to do next, and I decided to start an advisory company. And I had a few stops in between there, but ultimately when ChatGPT came out, I was amazed with what it could do. And because of my background and both the process, and I saw it as transformative to business. And that gave me the inspiration to start AI Business Engineers. But more importantly, I went around and I started talking to people before I started it that were heads of technology. And what I realized very quickly is we were all at the same pole position because it was so new, the advent of generative AI and what these large language models could do, that they didn't know any more than I did. Right. So over the last 3.5 years, that's all I've done. And the name of the company, because there's a term called AI engineers, and those people that understand AI, but we put the business in there because what you'll find out is AI, the shiny object, is important, but it's 30% of it. The 70% is still traditional process, business, people that have to be incorporated in it or will not be successful, right? And we'll, I'm sure, talk about that more as we get deeper.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
There you go.
So a lot of our listeners may feel like they've missed out on the AI window already. Is it too late for them to catch up?
Of course not. Yeah. No, it's not too late, but you better get started because it's continuing to advance, and that gap just is going to continue to widen, right? It's like the analogy I'd give you is like the people that played kids that you got played golf with. If you're just starting playing golf now and you play with kids that started when they were young, that gap's hard to close, or you may never close it. Well, the same thing here.
Right.
Just get started.
Right. So we've heard of this hype for years on AI. Why is 2026 the year it actually changes real estate?
Well, and it's not just real estate; it's any business. What we've been doing for the last 3 years, and I'm sure everyone has been talking about the chatbots, right?
Yeah.
So. And those are great, and I look at those as individual productivity tools. You ask a question, it generates an answer. It's not just search; it does generate an answer, and that's great. 2026 is where you're actually using agents and putting it to work in your company, giving it the ability to take action, where it's not just ask a question, get an answer. Now we can give it a goal, have it design the plan, implement the plan, and come back to us with executions, whether that might in various, and we'll get into kind of specific examples, but around why is it now? Because we have evolved from just simple chat bots to reasoning models, which are the new kind of chat bots where when you ask it a question, you can see it's thinking, it's going through a process, right? It's making a plan. If you use the more sophisticated models today, you'll see that. But we're even beyond that now. What we're seeing, we're at what's called the agentic AI, where you're actually giving it a goal, having it understand your business and take actions for you. So that's what's happening now.
So if I'm a CEO and I have to make a decision and I'm going to be, looking at an investment, you got to be looking at ROI. So where is that ROI? Is it efficiency in the back area of the office? Is it in the front of the house, like deal sourcing and underwriting? That's what we would do in commercial real estate. Give me a little help with this.
Well, it's both, and I think the one that most people understand is the efficiency side of it, cutting costs, processing invoices, or consolidating documents for quick recall and things of that nature. But what we're seeing also is more on the front end, specifically to real estate, identifying opportunities, right? Doing that sourcing for you, doing the qualification, doing the vetting, but also in the valuation and the modeling, because the models have gotten so good that you can do it yourself. You can design your own model specific to your organization. So it's all of those. But what I would say with regards to AI, here's the key thing. When you get started in AI, you need to make sure that the first workflow or process that you design can be quantifiable. You want to be able to say, okay, what does this cost us today, either in the form of time or money? And usually they're both, right? Time, you can apply a dollar figure to that. And you can say, okay, here's what it cost. And then once we look at it from a AI first, if we design this and implement it, what is it going to either save from a production standpoint, or if it's on the revenue side, how much revenue can this produce for us? Let's say identifying where maybe we were looking at 5 opportunities a year, now we can look at 20 because of AI. So it's going to drive the top line, right? And those are, but the key point is ROI is it has to be measurable. You have to define it. If you start off with this ambiguous, we just want to put AI in and just see what happens, don't do that. Make sure that you have one process. Don't try to boil the ocean. Pick a workflow, define what it cost you today, and measure it from day one once you implement it and track the results. And what we're seeing is, on average, we're seeing anywhere from a 3.5 to 5 return on investments in all the projects that we do. And again, those are all different, right? But as a gauge, that's kind of a good measure.
In our business, we would set up a model. We need some sort of a model for underwriting.
Mm-hmm.
If we were looking at a deal or wanting to look at several deals and compare several deals, we would need to set up some sort of a model for the agents to scrub it. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I think let's look at it this way. You've got a history, right? Your all of your value is all the stuff that you've done. And can I just back up for a minute?
Sure. Yeah.
One of the things that you should consider doing, and again, it's all, you got to look at the size of your organization. A lot of people are creating what I would call kind of this company intelligence system, or I use the term EKG, if you will. And what you do is, especially for the mid-sized companies, if we can gather all of our context, all of our information, and have AI kind of filter through that, right? And it knows all of that, and you can ask it any question. Think about the power of that and the time that saves.
Yeah.
But back to your point on valuations, yes, you can design valuation models that pull from your company experiences, your data set, number one, but more importantly, you can design that very quickly today, which typically you would probably go to a third-party software provider to do that. But because of the ability to code very quickly today relative to the past, you can design it for you the way that you think around your processes, and it's yours. And it's not held in some third-party software. And the ability to do that was never like, we've just had that because of agentic AI and these coding models such as Codex and Claude Code, which you may have heard of. They, where you feed it a request in natural language, it can produce that model for you.
Okay.
I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Or am I kind
yeah.
of getting a little off base here?
No, it does. I mean, I'm just, and people in our business, I'm thinking, if you are trying to look at or analyze a property to purchase, that sort of thing. I mean, setting up some sort of a model to analyze that property, go back and do it the old way, but see what that model spits out, because if you can get that right, you can scrub more deals.
Look, I want to be very, very clear that AI is going to enhance your business, but it's not going to take away that art of relationships, communication, and what's unique to your firm and to all the other firms out there listening. But my point by asking that question is this. If you look at all of those different work streams, let's talk about the first one of identifying the opportunity, right? Just the opportunity. What if you had an agent or a workflow? I call it everything kind of a workflow. And usually it's an agent that's out there that knows your criteria, that knows what you like, that's scanning this region that you like and identifying properties for you and bringing that to you kind of in a dashboard. It's one opportunity. And I know that you get outreach to you, but someone that would ingest that and do the first filtering for you. Would that save you time? Would that be of value? That's one thing. Mm-hmm. But then also doing, like you said, doing the evaluations, doing the comps, and pulling that data for you and putting that in a model that you've designed for you to value that. That's another use of AI that would work in that instance.
But you've got to also hope that the AI is pulling the right information when you're pulling comps and you're pulling all that too. So that's where the human element comes in, where you've got to scrub it yourself.
No
question.
This
is just a tool that you're using. It's like what we're doing right now on the back of the house with us doing what are called lease abstracts, which is basically a lease summary. And we have a form that we tell the AI to put all this pertinent information into this abstract for us. But the backside of it is you can't just say, great, done, and you walk away. You have to go back through and make sure that it did it correctly and got the information. And then you have to update it as leases change. So what you're saying is it's a tool, and it saves time. I mean, I press that button when you're doing a lease abstract, go get a cup of coffee, and come back, and it's done. And that takes usually an hour to an hour and a half of somebody's time to do. And that was just a coffee run for me.
That's right. That's right. And if you're looking at using, let's say, the third-party models that are out there, again, there's a gazillion of them, but the household names we all know, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and I would say Claude is the best, quite honestly. If you're not using Claude,
that's what we're using.
You should be using Claude. If you're not using Claude Cowork, you should use that. And we can, I'll come back to that. But my point is, that's just the model. But when you bring that into your organization, back to your point of it has to be right and pulling from your data, that's where a firm like Abe's or others can help you connect it to all your data, right? It's the brain. Now you have to give it eyes, arms, and legs. That's the agency part. And you can put guardrails around this to reinforce, to eliminate the hallucinations, to make sure it's right, and all these things. That brain is the key, because it's incredible asset and it's an incredible tool. But if you can build these guardrails, you'll mitigate those errors. You'll have the checks and balances that right now you're kind of doing as a human. And I'm not saying those ever go away, but I'm saying it mitigates those risks. So that's about designing the workflow. Okay, think about that engine it's like designing a car. Okay. Everybody knows about the engine. That's what we use this engine, and when we ask basic questions. But what if we give it, a steering wheel and tires and put the brakes around it to make it much safer, better, and go faster? That's what organizations like Abe's does and others in designing a workflow specific to your business.
Okay. So people have been asking this question, and that is AI going to replace a real estate professional? I mean, it's always been a relationship business, but is that a threat, in your opinion?
No, it's not going to replace the real estate professional. It's going to replace a lot of the tasks that you do. It's going to make you more efficient and more effective at your job. But I don't think so. I mean, real estate historically and still is a very relationship-driven business. What you always must provide is that judgment and that empathy, right? And but keep this in mind, everyone's going to have these AI tools, and you need to leverage them in your business or you will fall behind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You won't have the efficiency that let's say one of your competitors has, and they can move faster than you can on job opportunities or I'm sorry, on development opportunities if you don't have it. So I don't think it's going to replace real estate professionals. Interestingly enough, there was a study done, I'm just going to look at my notes here, that tracked 21,000 companies over the last 3 years, those that had implemented AI versus those that had not. And what it found was that those that had implemented AI actually grew their white-collar roles and their entry-level roles by around 10%, while those that didn't remained kind of stagnant. And you ask, well, that's kind of counterintuitive. Well, it's because the efficiency allowed them to grow their businesses back to kind of that top line. They expanded their businesses so much that they needed additional people. So it actually provided job growth. Now, again, I'm not naive to the fact that AI is going to take some jobs. It will, but it's not going to be the job apocalypse that I think a lot of people have talked about in the media, because that gets clicks and things like that. So I'm a big believer that get out there, learn the tools, become an expert, because it's going to be no different. In 3 or 4 years, it'll be no different than using the internet or whatever. It'll just be understood and expected. So don't put your head in the sand. Learn it.
Right. So on the marketing side, then, since our job seems to be safe, but the marketing side, if I'm an agent and I don't want to be living on my phone, my cell phone, how does AI help with the marketing side?
So as far as outreach, meaning
marketing outreach, getting your brand out there.
Yeah.
Marketing a property, whatever. Yeah.
We do it a lot. One, you can automate. You can automate the distribution of your message, meaning that you have agents that can create content for you, right? That you're ultimately gonna bless, but then you can have that automatically distributed through social media, whether that's LinkedIn or other sites like that, or email. So there's a lot of that going on today, using AI to create the content, because that's usually the hardest part, but also automate the distribution of those messages, whether that's through social media, email, or what have you. And that's a very common task. And then tracking, if anybody has responded to that and so forth.
Okay.
So that's a pretty common use of AI is enhancing your marketing outreach through this. Again, everything is a workflow, right? Think about it. You've got to design. You look at how do we do it today, but then more importantly, let's take an AI first approach. Where can we apply an agent? With an agent is nothing more than one of these models with the ability to connect to data and to take action. Right, that's what it is. So if you think about it from that first principles approach, you can usually gain a lot of efficiencies, especially in the marketing front.
So if you've called it a losing strategy if you hand AI to your IT department and say that's your responsibility. You've called that a losing strategy.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I teach a class over at U of L, and I've seen this time and time again. AI is a business initiative. It is a restructuring of your business and your business process. If you think about it as just an IT and a technology initiative, it will fail. And the reason is because it is very important that the C-suite and at the very top has bought into it, because it's as much about people and process as it is technology, because we're all humans, and what I call the immune system, that's the people that are fearful for their jobs are going to push back.
Right.
And again, if you just say hand it off to IT and assume it's all they're going to buy this tool and everything's just going to get implemented and it's going to work great, it will not. I've seen it time and time again. It is a business initiative that starts at the top.
Okay, that's probably the biggest mistake that people make, right?
It is the biggest mistake that people make.
Yep.
Again, everybody just says, "Oh, that's an IT thing." No, it's not.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, and no offense to those people in IT, but they know very little about AI. It's changed so much, and IT's typically about infrastructure and piping and getting your computers to work, which has nothing to do with AI, right? I mean, AI is an advanced technology. It's more about work processes. It probably impacts more your COO than it does your anyone that's head of IT.
Okay. If you're a real estate firm, and there's a lot of different AI, Perplexity. We talked about Claude, a whole bunch of different ones that you can rent. Which one out there would give a real estate company the best competitive advantage? Is it Claude, or what? Are there any that are kind of designed to feed into more of the real estate industry?
So, okay, I think the first thing you have to break down is ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini are chatbots. That's it. Okay, they're machines. Now those same models, you think of them as engines, and set those chatbots over here as individual productivity tools. Okay, you can use them to ask a question, get an answer. That's what they do. Now, let's say I wanted to design a workflow for your business. I might use one of those engines in that process, but I'm automating that entire workflow. It's completely different process. So, but to answer your question, what I would say is, get with someone that understands AI. They will tell you they'll design that workflow for you, and they'll pick the right engine. And in fact, it may be none of those, depending on what your use case is. And in fact, you have to remember too that these engines, these chatbots, they're not free. Now, they're what's going to happen is, as we move forward, the price of these tokens are going to increase because we're short electricity. Another debate. But like, there are even models you might bring in house that you might host locally that cost you nothing, okay, to run your process, okay. But I know I'm getting off track. But let me come back to specifically on the chatbot front. I would say use Claude Cowork, which is just a more advanced version of that. What Claude Cowork is, it allows you to connect to your data sources. It has guardrails around that, permissioning and things of that nature. So, it can't go off the rails. But then it can accomplish goals and do things for you based off that history. And it remembers, it has memory, right? So you're not starting all over in context. So my advice would be use Claude Cowork if you wanted one that's kind of off the shelf, that you could leverage in real estate.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I was at the shopping center convention in Las Vegas in May, and it was, of course, every conversation that centered around, well, how are you using AI? That was the big topic. And then there was a section of the floor that was booths that were all AI. That's the first time I've ever seen that. Yeah. So it was really interesting, and the buzz going around there was Claude. Exactly what you're talking about. It was Claude. So that's what we're using.
Yeah, so what's interesting is there are scoreboards out there publicly that measure all of these models when they come out for different things, whether it's in math or reasoning, whatever. But Claude seems to always be at the top of the list. Every week someone else comes up with a new model.
Yep.
Whether that's ChatGPT or Gemini, which is Google's product, or another, and they kind of do this over time. But Claude consistently is a leader, especially in business. So I would encourage you to try. And the co-work is amazing. And they have another product they've just rolled out called Claude Tags, where you can tie it into like your Slack. And soon as I'm sure they'll have it on Teams where it'll all just be connected, right? It's just going to be all this interconnected world, because the key thing here is we as humans have always been that connective tissue of software. If you think about the world that we lived in, you had this ERP system, you had this CRM system, you had this accounting system, but they were all siloed, right?
Right.
And humans were the connectors. I'd go into that system, pull that out, I'd pull that out, and I would do all of that, right?
Right.
We were the connectors. AI now is that connector, right?
Okay.
So if you have to think about it that way. When I talk about AI agents and workflows, if I can design that where it can pull from all of those systems and has all of that knowledge, and it can remember context, and so you're not starting over in every single thing when you ask it a question, especially let's say about a lease project, for example. It could go back and recall, where are we on the XYZ development project? And it knows, oh, you're right here. Here's the open items. And you don't have to go back and think about the power of that. But the key point there is we're moving away from these single silos where humans have been the connective tissues. And that's why SaaS companies are slightly worried, because it's going to change the way that we deal with software going forward.
Mm-hmm. So we've already established the fact that this is not the job-killing machine, yeah, that's going to attack all jobs and all that. So, and even might create some jobs. So, what does the team of the future look like?
Yeah, I think that everyone needs to understand AI and how it works. As individuals, you're going to manage AI agents. That will be part of your job role, no matter what it is. So, if you think about it, we today you might manage staff and interns and things of that nature. You will manage AI agents. So, having that ability, that discernment, and being able to analyze their output and what they're doing will be very important. Domain experience is paramount. So it's important, that you not only do you have the technical side, but that domain experience is going to be your differentiator, okay? But as far as, the organization, aside from managing agents, I think it will be flatter organizations than we have in the past. So that middle layer is probably going to be the most at risk. But again, you can't displace discernment and judgment and relationships.
Okay. Good. Okay. All right. So you haven't started your AI. You haven't started using AI yet. Your company. What is the first step? Are you identifying a question first, or are you identifying here's a process that we think we can utilize and streamline AI, or is there what do you do first?
So if I'm a leader of a company, number one, I look at it in two buckets: personal and then professional. But they do come together. Personally, you need to get educated. You need to play with the tools, the chat bots that are out there. Pick one, and again, it's like Ford, Chevy, they're all doing the same thing. Just pick one, right? Don't and learn how to use it and leverage it. That's number one, so that you understand the basics. From the company side, don't go out and buy a bunch of software and all of that. You need to pick a workflow that you can measure, back to the ROI question, and then you need to get someone to help you design that workflow from an AI first principles, and then implement it, and then measure that. And once you have success with that, then go to the second one, right? And
the second workflow.
Second workflow. So in the world of real estate, let's think about it. One workflow could be just the identification of properties. That's a workflow, right? There's a whole process to identifying and finding a property that meets your criteria. That's one workflow. The other workflow is evaluating that, doing the due diligence of that. That's a workflow, right? There's so much involved in that, right? Then there's the whole underwriting, the capital side of it. That's a workflow, right? Then there's the whole the maintenance side of it, or managing the property. That's a very broad workflow. There are sub workflows within that. So you have to break it down by workflow and realize the chatbot isn't the answer. A workflow is you're connecting. It is an automated process where that engine that you learned as a chatbot is sitting in there performing functions, right? A chatbot is not a workflow, okay? A chatbot is a productivity tool. When you get into organizations, you need to look at it from the standpoint of how do we redesign this workflow, and I would advise getting someone to help you with it, because it's it's more than just the chatbot itself. It's the connecting to your data sources, it's putting in the guardrails, and it's giving you that and all the security measures, right? Who can access what, and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so what, in your opinion, what does ordinary life look like 10 years from now? There you go. Get your crystal ball out, Todd.
Oh my God. This has moved so fast that 6 months is like the equivalent of, it seems like 10 years. I mean, it really is moving so fast. And people that do 5-year planning, I'd say that's just a waste of time right now. And I'm saying that I'm a CPA and accounting guy, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but I don't know. I mean, I would tell, well, I do. I could give you my prediction. I think that AI will be everywhere, right? I think that the biggest risk we're going to have is the compute itself, okay? Just like electricity is what drives, let's say, a manufacturing entity, right? It's the power. Well, compute's what's going to drive business. And oh, by the way, we're going to be short. I mean, we are underestimating the amount of compute we're going to need. And so if you're running a real estate firm, one thing you might think about is what value add could I get for my tenants by securing compute? You may have thought about, it's like an internet connection, right? Back, providing that to your tenants, or just electricity. Compute is going to be no different. It's going to be expected at every property. We're going to have X compute so that we can run our business. The business is going to run on compute, because it's think of it as like brain power, right? All of those models. Let me give you an analogy. When you ask a question to ChatGPT, you're putting in tokens. It goes back to the model. It processes. It comes back with an answer, right? It's using compute time. Now think about it. If you have 200 agents running within your company 24/7, okay, the amount of compute that's going to require. So my point is, compute is going to become in high demand. The price is going to go up. So you need to be sure that you secure your compute. Would be my advice for any company.
Okay. Great. Well, Todd, this has been really informative. Tell our listeners where they can get in touch with you, and your LinkedIn profile, any information. And you also teach a class at U of L.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that as we start to exit.
Yeah, so I do teach a class at U of L. It's called AI Essentials for Business. It's a one-day class. I've been doing it now for 3 years. I designed the class, and 100% approval rating. So everyone said they would come back, and in fact, we have a lot of repeat companies come in, send their employees. Anyway, the next class is September 24th. You can go to our website, aibes.ai, and you can find a link to the class because it's through the University of Louisville's Executive Education Program. And that's where you can also find us. Again, AI Business Engineers, aibes.ai. So anyway, I would suggest, it's a one-day class, full immersive. So if you haven't started, this is a great place to start, because we'll spend the morning on the fundamentals so you have a good base understanding, and the afternoon is really hands-on execution, and it will get you to that whole roadmap of, if you're a company just starting out, what do I need to know? I want to design an AI workflow for my company. How do I go about it? You'll walk out of there with a roadmap for your company. That's the plan for that whole one-day session.
Super.
So it's very immersive.
Super. Well, this has been fascinating. Always is when I engage you in conversation. So I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, thank you all of you for listening to the Dahlem Realty Company podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.